Smokey's just like, oh, thank you so much, sir. I apologize for stealing your wallet if I knew. And then, and Joey's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Hold on, let me finish. He finishes his Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola, Jack, Coca-Cola. He finishes that. And he's like, and he goes down to the kid. He asks him, he's like, hey, kid, do you want to be my funny black sidekick for this particular arc? And he's like, what? He's like, too bad, you're going to be my sidekick. It's like, that's how it happens, chap. And so, that is a hell of an introduction. So let's go ahead and get to my next review for today's show. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Episode 10. So to give you a brief recap of last episode, it was pretty big. It was pretty bombastic, chat. It had a good sense of finality. Sadly, Jonathan Joestar, this hero that we came to know, who has been fighting for all intents and purposes, his brother Dio for the majority of his life, has met his end at the hands of Dio, or at least the fleshy arteries of Dio, chat. JoJo sacrificed himself in order for his beloved his wife, who he's got married to a day and a half ago. He sacrificed himself and killing his brother in the process. We'll see. They say Dio's dead, but is Dio ever really dead, chat? Probably not. Most likely not. But he died in the explosion. However, his wife Irina, she crept into the casket, the sarcophagus of Dio, saving herself, also the life of a baby she found, and also the unborn life that is inside her belly, chat, because she was preggo. She was throwing up everywhere in the last episode. She was rough. And she continued on for the rest of her life, apparently. And 50 years later, chat, that's how he... Now, we had a pretty big time skip. I want to say between episode 1 and 2. It was either I think it was episode 1 and 2. It was several years. Dio and JoJo, they kind of had a bit of an armistice, kind of had a bit of a peace. And, they were in their early years of university, or maybe they were just about to graduate, right? Well, this is the biggest time skip for the series yet, chat, because it takes place 50 years later. And we're now following, of course, the familiar characters that we've seen. Their circumstances have changed, but also a whole new generation of heroes and villains. And it starts off with Speedwagon. Speedwagon has now become an oil tycoon. He's become a very rich man, an oil tycoon. He is invested in aviation. He has all these different planes, but he still remembers JoJo. JoJo was his best friend, even though he only knew him for 2.5 weeks. He still remembers him. He is kept in touch with his family, helping them when he can, because he wants to. Not because they need it, but because he wants to, obviously. But with his newfound wealth, he has also come to realize that there is something nefarious in a temple in Mexico, right? And he's requested the assistance of Strizo, who also helped JoJo and Speedwagon and Baron Zappelli in the defeat, helping them fight against and eventually defeat Dio and his horde of zombies, his zombie vampires. And he's asked him for his help because he has encountered something truly nefarious in the jungles and caverns of Mexico. And they even though Speedwagon, he's old, he's super old now at this point. God, he's probably 80 or something years old. Strizo, though, is surprisingly, he's looking pretty good. He's like a silver fucking fox, chat. Despite his hair graying and silver, he's the practicing Herman energy for all those years has given him a bit of a youthful appearance. And he has also taken over the temple, the monastery, from Master Tonpetty, who died of natural causes, as far as we know, in between the events of episode 9 and episode 10. And so they greet each other, they're so happy to see each other. Master Strizo, he's got some of his followers with him to help assist Speedwagon in this task. And so they eventually go to Mexico. and they go into this underground cabin, Chad. They're exploring it, and there's like booby traps everywhere, and there's like this vegetation. But they go deeper and deeper and deeper into this ancient temple, into this ancient cabin, and they come upon this huge giant atrium, Chad. In the middle of this atrium is like this obelisk, and they get closer and closer to it, and they see it terrifies them. They're like, oh my God, what is this? They see that this obelisk is completely embedded with various stone masks, the same stone masks that Dio used to transform himself into a vampire or a vampire lord. Like, this is horrifying. This is maybe where the original mask came from all those years ago. But they notice something that's being surrounded by all these masks, and it's this huge individual, Chad. They're swole as fuck. They have these huge biceps. They got killer calves and killer thighs. And they seem to be in the stone itself, like petrified within it. And they're like, what did this? Who is this individual? And then, and Speedwagon's like, oh my God, we must destroy this. We have to destroy this because we can't have another situation like Dio that could potentially plunge the world into darkness yet again. But we immediately cut, Joe. And we're introduced to a new character. We're in New York City. I believe the year is 1938. 1938, New York City. And we meet a new character. Chad, his name is Smokey. Now, this is the first black character introduced in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, as far as I know. At least the first black character that gets speaking lines. And I love this, the creators of the show, the creators of the manga are like, you know what? This is our first black character. What should we call him? Let's call him Smokey. Smokey Black. And I'm just like, okay. So we meet a young Smokey Black who is a pickpocket, Chad. He's a little street urchin, right? And he's like, I need to identify a new target. I need to steal some money. And he spots this one guy. He spots this 7-foot-tall, broad-shouldered guy, like huge fucking muscles, Chad, biceps, six-pack, fucking swole thighs. He's like, that's the guy I want to steal from. I don't know, Chad. If I was Smokey Black, I don't know if I would want to steal from with this particular individual. But his target is helping himself to some Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola, chat, Coca-Cola, and he's paying for it. But then Smokey Black, he sneaks up behind this man and steals his wallet, and he's like, "Fuck you, sucker!" And he takes off running. But the 7-foot-tall swole guy is just like, "Oh, that was weird." But we follow good old Smokey Black, chat, and he turns this corner, goes in the alleyway, then he gets smacked right in the face. And there's these two cops. These two cops here. There's one cop that looks, kind of normal looking, right? He's got, mustache and stuff, regular features. And then we have just this morbidly obese cop. He literally looks like a human pig hybrid creature. He's like, "Oh, Smokey Black, what are you doing?" And Smokey's like, "Please, sir, please." And the cop just hits him so goddamn, hurts him like in the ear, in the back of the head, causes him to start bleeding. The cop picks him up, slams against the brick wall, and he's like, "I saw what you did. I saw that you stole that man's wallet. You need to pay. Give me the wallet, hand it over." And Smokey hands it over, and the cop's like, "This is evidence," and he pockets that shit. He's like, "Oh, he's super corrupt. He's racist and super corrupt, chap." And he says, "Here, I'm gonna let you go off on a warning, but every week you gotta pay me $20 along with half of the merchandise that you steal." The cop's like, "Yeah, boss, tell him," right? And he's like, if you don't give me my money and the half of your merchandise, then I'll beat you even worse, and I'll leave you in a place that no one will ever find you. Do you understand?" Smokey's like, "Yes, sir, I understand." But then, before the cop is about to give him another smack across the face, the individual whose wallet was stolen turns the corner and sees this going on, and he questions. He's like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And the cop's like, Don't mind us, sir. Don't mind us. I just caught this street urchin, this rapscallion. I actually believe he's the one that stole your wallet. We have to keep it for evidence, obviously." And it's like, just trying to make up fucking bullshit excuses. But the person is like, "Oh, no, I think there seems to be some sort of misunderstanding." And the cop's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I gifted my wallet to that kid. He seemed to be quite hungry, and I just wanted him to get some food, all right? He was just so excited. He was running down the street. So I don't appreciate you assaulting him, officer. I think that in itself is a crime. And the cop's like, don't fucking talk to me that way. I'm the popo. I'm the police. You can't do that. And he's like, who the hell are you? And this person introduces himself, reveals himself to be Joseph Joestar, the grandson, not the son, the grandson of Jonathan Joestar and Arena Joestar. And the cop's like, is that supposed to mean anything to me? Is that name supposed to mean anything? And good old Joey Joestar, he's like, oh, it will in just a bit. He's like, I don't like the way you're speaking to me. Stop resisting! And the cop like goes to like attack him, to give him a like punch him in the face. But good old Joey Joestar, chat, much like his grandfather before him, he is imbued with that Herman energy. And he just like lightly taps the cop's face. He just kind of goes like that. And the entire front of the cop's face just explodes. Like his nose like pops, like all of his front teeth just explode out of his mouth, like his lips split. He's like, he's like squealing like a pig on the ground, and the other cop's like, stop resisting, and he pulls out his gun. And he's about to shoot good old Joey Joestar, but Joey Joestar is like, little does he know, is that I've actually mastered Herman energy, and I could imbue small objects with it. And so finally, he's like, and Joey's like talking to himself. He's just like, I'm quite thirsty right now. And as the cop's like literally about to pull the trigger, Joey, he flips the bottle cap off the bottle, and it shoots out with such fucking force that it hits the cop's finger, and it just explodes. It explodes his finger. He's like, and he drops his gun, and he goes over to the pig-faced cop, and they're both like crying in their own mess. They're pissing and shitting themselves and just bleeding out, chat. It's like, oh my God. Holy shit. And Smokey's just like, oh, thank you so much, sir. I apologize for stealing your wallet if I knew. And then, and Joey's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Hold on, let me finish. He finishes his Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola, Jack, Coca-Cola. He finishes that. And he's like, he goes down to the kid. He asks him, he's like, hey, kid, do you want to be my funny black sidekick for this particular arc? And he's like, what? He's like, too bad, you're going to be my sidekick. It's like, that's how it happens, chap. And so, yeah, that is a hell of an introduction to the latest member of the Joestar family. And we get an explanation. Apparently, Joey Joestar is visiting New York City with his grandma, his Nana, Arena, chap. And sadly, Nana Arena has been taking care of Joey Joestar for most of his life, because her son, Joey Joestar's father, the son of Jonathan Joestar, died during the Great War in the 19-teens, like 1918. And I guess the mother followed soon after, chat. And this is interesting, another interesting detail. The mother was the baby that Arena also saved on the boat. Remember that? So that's kind of like a weird situation, where she raised those two as her own children, but as like, you're my son and you're my daughter. But then the two kids fell in love with each other. Now, again, they're not blood related, but it is kind of weird that she raised them as their own kids, and the two kids just happen to fall in love with each other. It's kind of like, not technically incest. It's like incest adjacent. Like, Naya would be like, nah, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It doesn't pass the smell test. So, in any case, they grew up. They shtoop. They had the kid. It was Joey Joestar, but sadly, they both died, and Grandmama Arena's been taking care of them. Eventually, though, we cut back to Mexico, Che. We cut back to Mexico, and we're still in the caverns. The caverns with the giant obelisk in front of them of all the various stone vampiric masks, and also that one individual that seems to be petrified in the stone just the whole time, right? And Speedwagon's like, oh my God, this is far worse than I could have ever imagined, but I'm so glad that I brought my friend Strizo here. If only Jojo was here. If Jonathan Joestar was here, my best friend in the world. I knew that he would help destroy this to make sure that this evil would not continue on, that it wouldn't put the world at risk, because he dedicated his life, to stopping evil. And stopping the evil of his brother, Dio. But he thinks about Jojo's grandson, who he was apparently very, very close to. Again, Speedwagon, he wanted to take care of the family as well, as a way of, thanking them, of course. And so, he gave them, money and things, and he loved hanging out with basically who he considers to be his own grandson in Joey Joestar. But I guess but he also talks about how he is just as powerful, if not more so, than his grandfather. And he thinks about this one time where, because Speedwagon is just so rich now at this point, people are constantly trying to kill him and steal his fortune. And there's this one situation where they were flying one of his planes, I want to say in the late 1920s, early 1930s, and there's a hijacking. And these people are holding Speedwagon for ransom, right? And we cut to it's a pretty large, sizable plane, medium-sized plane, not like a commercial one, but it's got extra seats in there, and all the hijackers are taking hostages and stuff, and we see good old Joey Joestar. He's just sitting in the back reading his comic book, and this one hijacker's like, "Get the fuck up! You got to move over to here." And Joey's like, "I'm reading my comic book right now, so I'm not going to do that, sir. So honestly, if you can actually stop hijacking the plane, that would be great." And the guy's like, "Fuck you," and he smacks him. He smacks Joey Joestar, and Joey Joestar's like, "How dare you!" Should not have done that, because he freaks the fuck out. And Speedwagon observes the natural talent of Joey Joestar using Herman energy, right? And Joey just starts taking out all these fucking guys, starts taking out all the hijackers, but in his recklessness, in his impulsiveness, he also takes out the hijacker pilot, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And so, and the plane malfunctions at this point, and it's like, "Ah, God, what are we gonna do?" And Joey's like, "Don't worry, everyone. I saw Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. We're just gonna do the scene where we take, well, we don't have an inflatable raft, but we do have the seat cushions. Let's take the seat cushions, and once we are over land that isn't too far down, we'll jump out and we'll use the seat cushions, to cushion our fall." And so let's get all this. So they get all the rest of the hostages out, and they get the regular pilot out, and then they jump and they land safely, thank God. And maybe good old Joey Joestar, he imbues the cushions with Herman energy, and they're all saved as the hijackers crash into the forest below. And Speedwagon, he comments, he's like, "Oh yes, he's just as powerful as his grandfather, if not more so, but he's impulsive and he's reckless. It just needs to be honed. It just needs to be honed, and maybe he could strive to be just as great as his grandfather once was." And Strizo's like, "Hey, listen, I know you're kind of having a flashback and everything, but I'm going to betray all of you now." And he's like, "What?" And Strizo, he removes his hood, and then he activates his Herman energy, and he kills all of his followers. He squishes them into pancake people. And, Speedwagon's like, "Why would you do that? Why did you turn them into pancake people?" And Strizo's like, "Oh, I'm evil. I've been lying to all you guys for 50 fucking years." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Hold on, give me a minute." And he twists around and he spin kicks Speedwagon in the back of the head. And Speedwagon's like, "Ah!" And he falls to the ground. He's like, "Ah!" He's like, he can't get up, probably because he's paralyzed from the neck down. It's like, "No, not Speedwagon." And Speedwagon's asking Strizo, like, "Why? Why would you do this?" And Strizo's like, it all goes back to that night when we fought Dio. Apparently, Strizo, he really admired Dio. He admired Dio, and he admired the power that he had. And he was always he thought he could achieve that level of power just through practicing Herman energy, right? But it's been 50 years. And despite the Herman energy keeping him younger than many of his other contemporaries, he is naturally aging. Like you can tell in his face, his hair is pretty much silver at this point. And, you know, he's like, and I realized that I would not be able to achieve the same level of power and immortality as Dio. And I was always hoping that we would find more of these stone vampiric masks so that I too can become a vampire lord as well. And Speedwagon is like, but why? Why would you do something like this? And Strides was like, because I'm evil! And he steps on the head of Speedwagon and smushes him, chat. And I'm like, oh my God, why? It was horrible. It was so sad. It was so sad. And so he takes the mask, he attaches it to his face, and he uses Speedwagon's own blood to become a vampire lord. And he knows, and after he becomes a vampire lord, he knows that there's only truly one threat in this world that could possibly defeat him. And it is the blood of Joestar, because he realizes like Dio's greatest weakness was Jonathan Joestar and the Joestar family, and he needs to make sure to eliminate the threat. And so he swears that he will kill Joey Joestar, Arena, and wherever the Joestar family might be in order to cement his power across the world. It's like, wow, what a big fucking reveal. Eventually we cut. we cut from all that, and we're with Joey Joestar. He's almost hit by a taxi at one point, and he like starts assaulting the taxi cab driver, even though Joey Joestar is a little different from his grandfather. Like, Jonathan he had a better sense of morality. You know, he was kinder, he was more responsible. Joey, not so much. You know, Joey, he has I get a sense he has a moral code of sorts, obviously helping, you know, Smokey earlier in the episode. But then he has a very quick temper. He's a very quick temper, and he's very impulsive. He doesn't think things through. And so even though he was basically jaywalking across the street, and the taxi cab driver almost hit him, and his cashier was like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, how dare you talk to me that way? But as he is assaulting the taxi cab driver, his grandmama, his Nana Arena, she's walking with Smokey, and they've taken in Smokey as like one of their own. Arena's great. She's really cool. You know, she is the moral center of the Joestar family now. And she's asking, you know, her grandson, like, why are you doing that? And he's like, I just got this taxi for you, Grandma, because, you know, we're going to the restaurant. She's like, oh, that's very kind of you. And then they go inside, and they start driving to the restaurant. The taxi cab driver is terrified. But as they're driving, you know, Joey Joestar, he's just like, you know, it's been a while, Grandma. You know, I'm scared. Like, you're always, you know, doting over me, taking care of me, but you need a man for yourself. You know, it's been quite some time since, you know, Grandpa died, right? And it's like, you know, we're gonna be seeing Mr. Speedwagon, Uncle Speedwagon soon. Maybe you should hook up. And she's like, how dare you? And she takes out her umbrella and starts whacking him. And Smokey's just like sitting there in the back with him, going like, what is this family? What have I walked into? He has no idea. He has no fucking idea. Eventually, they go to the restaurant, very opulent, very fancy. Everything's fucking gilded in there. They all sit down around this table, and Smokey's just like, hey, Mrs. Joestar, I just want to thank you for all this. You know, I really appreciate it. And she's like, oh, it's nothing. We're rich. Because she inherited the Joestar family fortune. So she has, like, so much wealth. But also Speedwagon's been helping them, too. And she's like, no, happy to. Get whatever you want on the menu. But then there's like this fat, bloated mobster sitting like a table away. And I would describe him as a purple anime version of Wario from like Nintendo. And he's like eating spaghetti very violently. I was very concerned the way in which he was consuming this pasta, chat, like literally scooping into his mouth, like all the pasta strands. He can't even, he's chewing with his mouth open, and it's just gross. And he spots Smokey, and we've turned out, like, I'm sure this guy's going to have a very nice comment. He does not, chat. He does not have a very nice comment to Smokey. And he straight up is like, what's that black guy doing here? And it's like, oh, here we go. Here we go. And Smokey's just kind of just trying to, like, don't engage. And he's like, your kind isn't welcome here. And he calls over the waiter. It's like, wow, what's this black guy doing here? And the waiter's just like, he's with his family. They're here to eat some food. And he's like, I won't stand for it. I don't want him here. He's like, get up and go out into the alleys and the streets. That's where you belong. And Arena, she hears this and she's like, oh! She's disgusted. She's disgusted by that. She's not a fan of racism, chat. She's not very progressive for her age, for the 1930s, the late 1930s. And she's like, Joey, and Joey's just like, way ahead of you, Grandma, way ahead of you. And he gets up and he's like, listen, sir. And the guy's like, who are you? Are you his master? He's like, no, this good. My friend Smokey is my black sidekick. Okay, he's my funny black sidekick. You're not very funny though, Smokey. He's like, I'm trying, sir. I guess I don't know what's going on half the time. And he's like, I don't like the way you talk to him. And he's like, well, I don't care. His kind should be outside of the dogs. And he's like, listen, before I beat the hell out of you, I'm gonna break down everything about you. He's like, huh? And he just looks at him like briefly and goes like, okay, I figured everything out about you. And he's like, I realize that you are probably a mob enforcer, not high in the hierarchy because you're fucking stupid. I can just tell by looking at you. You're walled-eyed and cross-eyed at the same time. I don't know how that even happens. But he also noticed that on your hand, your right hand, you have these abrasions, which means that you probably have brass knuckles in your pocket. I would imagine they're probably in your right pocket, sir. And he goes, and he takes it out. He has the brass knuckles. He's like, yeah, so you probably use those on a lot of people because your big, fat, fleshy hands aren't, like, able to actually make, like, a decent impact, so you have to wear the brass knuckles. So there's that. And, based on your injuries, you've probably lost more fights than actually won, and you usually probably prey on people who you perceive to be weaker than you, like, physically, right? And he's like, hi. He's like, yeah, that's what I kind of figured out. And so all I'll say is, you're just a big fat fuck who has no business being in this kind of restaurant right now, and you are disgusting. You are a horrible human being, and you should do us all a favor and get your smelly fat ass out of here. He's like, how dare you? And he goes to attack him. And it looks like he's seemingly beating the shit, like hitting the face of Joey Joestar. But in reality, like, he's in this blood rage. He doesn't even see what's actually happening. And Joey has apparently grabbed either like a chair or like a hat stand. He grabs like a hat stand. He grabs a hat stand and he blocks all the punches from the big fat mob enforcer. And the mob enforcer was hitting it so much he didn't realize that he has broken his hand. He's broken his hand. The brass knuckles are now, like, his fingers are curled around the brass knuckles, like, going both ways. And he's just like, see, you couldn't even feel that because you have emotional issues, sir. You have psychological, emotional, and anger issues. He's like, oh, it's just like this meaty, fucking pulpy looking hand. And he's like, and now I'm going to beat the fucking hell out of you. And he proceeds to beat the ever-living shit out of this fat guy until he hits him so hard he falls against the table and just, and he shits himself. He shits and pisses himself. Meanwhile, this other guy stands up suddenly, and he's like, hi, I'm a mob boss. And they're like, you want some too? He's like, no. That was one of my henchmen. I apologize for the way he was speaking to your friend over there. That was disgusting, and I'm ashamed for that. And it's like, your meals are on me. And he's like, oh, that's very kind of you. And he's like, now, not to alarm you, but I do know who you are. And he addresses Arena as like, you are Arena Joestar. You're the wife, the former wife of Jonathan Joestar, correct? She's like, yes, that's true. And he's like, then you also happen to know Mr. Speedwagon, right? And she goes, yes, a friend of the family. He's an uncle. And he's like, yeah. I also know Mr. Speedwagon. Our paths have crossed, and I think he's a great man, and we've helped each other in many business ventures before. Legitimate business ventures. He says that to emphasize the fact that Speedwagon is not a criminal. And he's like, I never thought I would come across you, and I have obtained information that is not yet public, but I wanted to give this to you. It's come to my attention that Mr. Speedwagon was on an expedition with a former friend, a friend of your husband's, Strizo. I believe. She's like, yeah, Strizo, what a good man. Yeah. Well, apparently, Mr. Strizo has killed Mr. Speedwagon, betrayed him, and is on his way to New York to kill your whole family. And she's like, what? And even Joey's like, whoa, you mean my fucking uncle's dead? He's like, I'm sorry to say that, yes. He's like, oh, and then he just punches the guy, which is not, man, he's giving you information. He's being very nice. And Joey, he's very impulsive, and he does things that, like, he doesn't need to do, and he fucking just punches this poor, now again, he's the mobster, but he seems to be kind of nice. He punches the poor guy. He's like, why do you tell me things that upset me? You upset my grandmama. And he's like, I'm sorry, I thought I was helping. He's like, you're not helping. And then he's like, we gotta go. And they eventually leave, and Irina, she's like distraught, but she's still steely. She starts crying, but she's like, oh, she keeps her composure, and she realizes, like, oh my God, the evil of Dio still persists to this day. Like, and it's true. It's true. Like, Dio has had this effect across generations of the Joestar family. Obviously with, Jojo's father, and then with Jojo himself, and now with the rise of Strizo. And then we cut to Smokey, and Smokey's like, I don't know what's going on. I thought we were going to eat some food. I haven't eaten a meal in 3 days. So he's a little upset by that. But yeah, Irina's very upset by this news, and she realizes, like, the threat of Dio is not yet destroyed. It has just taken on a new form in Strizo. And Smokey's like, I don't know what any of these words mean. Which, to be fair, I feel for him. He's right. He has walked into a horrible situation. It's later that evening, and Smokey and Joey Joestar, while talking about the threat of Strizo, they also happen to be looking at some nudie magazines. They're not even nudie magazines, women's lingerie magazines. And Joey's he can't believe there's like a bigger cup size in a C cup. He's just like, I've never seen boobs bigger than C's. And Smokey's like, oh yeah, man, there's so many. You got D's, you got double D's, and it just keeps going and going and going. Joey's like, oh, you can't believe it. And as they're drinking, having a good time, talking about boobs, right? As guys typically do, boob talk's fun. Jojo, good old Joey Jojo, he spots a man who's just watching them from the front of the bar, who then suddenly leaves as he notices, like, Joey, like, makes eye contact, and he leaves. And Joey's like, that was weird. Who is that guy? He looks familiar. And he goes outside, he follows the guy, he notices just standing there on the sidewalk, like right next to the bar, and he starts looking at him. And like Joey, he starts to like analyze him. He looks him top to bottom. He's like, you do look familiar. There's something about you, but you're younger. Yeah, your hair is more vibrant than it's ever been. You have a glow to you, an energy that I have not seen in so long, but also it's familiar to me at the same time. And he's like, and it looks like your incisors, your teeth, they look a little elongated. The guy's like, he's like a vampire. He's like, oh shit. You're Strizo, aren't you? He's like, yes, it's me. It's me, Strizo. And he's like, what are you doing here? If you come to torture my family even more, he's like, I've come to do more than just that. And he's like, I killed your Uncle Speedwagon. And Joey's like, I don't like that. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't. I killed your Uncle Speedwagon, and I've come to purge the Joestar line. You're the only threat to me in this world. I will accomplish what Dio failed to do a generation ago. I will rule this world, and it starts today with your death, Joseph Joestar. And Joseph Joestar pulls out a fucking Tommy gun and fucking shoots the hell out of Strizo. Just, Strizo's like, whoo! He didn't expect it. Honestly, I didn't expect it either. Because Joey's just like, hold that thought. He just pulls a fucking Tommy gun, a machine gun, out of his asshole and immediately starts just filling Strizo with hot lead. Round after round after round of hot lead. Strizo's like, oh! And he's blasted back. And again, Joey Joestar, he doesn't really think things through because he shoots him, but he shoots him into the bar, like the huge, like, window. He shoots him in there, he crashes through, and he keeps fucking firing, and there's a bunch of people in there. There's a bunch of people in there, right? And they all fucking take cover at this point. Smokey's like, we were talking about boobs. What's going on? He takes cover, right? And Strizo's on the ground. He's like, ow. And then Joey, like the psychotic badass that he is, he puts his like, foot on top of the broken, like, windowsill. And he's like looking at Strizo, he's posing the fucking gun, and it's like, my name is Joseph Joestar. You killed my fucking Uncle Speedwagon, and now you must die. And that, my friends, is my review, my spoiler review, my scene by scene breakdown chat to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Episode 10. A new generation of Joestars and bizarre adventures. Hope you guys enjoy the review. I got every name wrong? Yeah. Hey, man, I'm nothing if not constantly inconsistent. You got to give me that. Not too bad. Oh, Lord. It was an arranged marriage. It's very weird. Like, okay, I know they're not related, but they were kind of like, it's just a bizarre situation. Like, they're not related, but they were raised as brother and sister, but then they fell in love with each other. Which is a concept we've seen explored in a couple of other movies. Like, there's this one movie we did a watch party for way back in the day called Ator, the Flying Eagle, which is like a Conan the Barbarian ripoff. And it was the same concept, where you had like two characters, the Ator, who was basically adopted by this family, kept in secret. But him and his sister like clearly like love each other, and like, God, I would just want to fuck. And it's like a major plot point. And like the Ator like literally goes to his dad and says, Dad, I fell in love with a girl. He's like, oh, who is it, son? It's like, Dad, it's my sister. I really want to fuck my sister. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. It turns out she's not your sister. You're adopted. And he's like, oh, thank God. And then he goes to his sister, and he's like, sister. She's like, so what did Dad say? It must have been pretty awkward. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm adopted, actually. She's like, oh, thank God. And then they proceed to immediately fuck. It's like, wow. Not wasting any time. Oh, Lord. Hey, man, hey. Good to have you guys all here. Again, welcome. Dio's greatest weakness is arrogance. Yeah. So, but I would also argue so is Joey Joestar at this point. He's very impulsive. Arrow Senpai, good to see you. Person Man's good to see you. Speedwagon's waifu. I was so sad to see Speedwagon go. So violently, too. Oh, Lordy. Yeah. Continue the music references in the series. Smokey Brown is a reference to Smokey Robinson. Oh, James Brown, famous funk R&B singers of the 70s. There you go. Very nice. Very, very nice. But yeah, chat. Yeah, new enemy, new villain. But again, it just shows you the negative effect that Dio has had across the generation. I imagine that's going to continue to happen throughout the rest of the series. But it's pretty cool. I love it. A lot of crazy shit happened in this particular episode. But hope you enjoyed the review. Hope you liked it a lot. But now, my friends, we are going to go ahead and we are going to move on to the